Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Drogan1701. With me is a man who thankfully had to change his password from Justin Bieber Forever, Greendragoon.
Yeah, my password would never, ever, ever be Justin Bieber.
Well, not now, not after this.
No, not ever. I'm not even going to explain that one.
Well, I never said these things I say were true in any way, shape, or form. So, on to more lies. Also with us is a man who I have suspected all along is secretly loyal to Redacted, Hippiejohn.
Out of the shadows and into the light. Hail Hydra! Hail Hydra!
Spoiler alert. And the inspiration behind the hot new game, Goat Simulator, Markhawkman.
I was going to do the Hail Hydra line, but Hippie got it first.
I was going to slip it in at the very end of the show while we say goodbye, but you guys beat me to it, so no big deal. And we have returning to the show tonight, Primar 13.
For the third time in what, 2 months?
Getting to be one of our regular guests. So tonight we have a lot of Foundry news, actually. Tribble patch notes went up Friday saying the Foundry would be coming back online. It actually didn't until Tuesday with the patch on Tuesday. So, take that for whatever it means. But what we do have is some actual new things for the Foundry on Tribble. Now, that's one of the things we want to show to you tonight. So, Greendragoon, if you want to log over.
Okay.
Bear with us here a moment while we do
talking while I do this. It's going to be a minute or so.
So, what we have is essentially about 3 or 4 different things that have appeared on Tribble. One of them, I know Primar was looking today, that's why I kind of asked him to be on the show, is a new ship for the summer event. You want to tell us what you saw?
Looks to be the Ryzen... Oh, what was it? Cruise liner. From what I saw, it has sails all over it. Each ship it had close to 20 custom Ryzen ship color scheme options on it, which was really cool. It took me about 45 minutes to get mine set up in the Foundry editor. And usually it takes, 30 seconds to create a ship in the Foundry editor? So that was a lot of fun. There was a lot more customization than I was expecting, especially there, let alone to be in the Foundry. It's surprising.
And there was a lot of customization, I remember, with the Ryzen Corvette, too. Some crazy color schemes.
I don't know anything about that Ryzen Corvette. Nothing at all. There are so many colors.
You're the reason. You're the problem here.
Does it actually have the ability to use plaid? Because that's one thing people attempted to do with the Corvette last year was get it to use a plaid color scheme.
You could almost make the Corvette look plaid if you did it right.
Actually, I think it has it this year.
So, guys,
Nice.
in the last couple of minutes, the Foundry has been taken down.
Really?
Yeah, it was literally on there 15 minutes ago, and now it's gone.
Wow.
It's locked down.
That's odd.
Drat.
Well, a certain ship apparently showed up there that wasn't ready.
I wonder.
Yeah,
what
that could possibly be the reason, considering that they let slip the map, the Ryzen map last time, and that got shut down pretty quick.
They didn't just
but if my memory
they didn't just shut down the map.
They shut down discussion on the map.
We are redacted.
Yes.
We're talking about redacted.
Mm-hmm.
He's not in the chat room. I was figuring he might have been listening.
Hey, you know what? We're not cryptic. We don't have to redact ourselves.
That's true.
Although right now I've got a loading screen that says cryptic.
So obviously there's that. So we'll just have to tell you about it rather than show you. Maybe we'll show you next time.
Actually, I got images. I'm trying to find them.
Okay.
Yay, images.
That'll
help.
If you can get those
if I
over
had
to
linked the right thing in
Greendragoon.
my forum post hours ago.
But in any case, the things that are on there, number one is, of course, doors on Earth space dock. Obviously, we have new Earth space dock maps, so with that comes new doors. I noticed a bunch on the main level of actual doors themselves. And then we have some interactable objects, of course, and the same old NPCs. One thing I did notice is that I have a mission that begins at the turbo lift down to the bottom levels. When I pulled that up, because they actually ported over all of the published missions, apparently. So I opened that one up and looked at it, and it said it was keyed to something called entry door, which I think is just the placeholder for people who are tied to the old doors and you really need to go in and select a new one. That was my take on it. I don't know, did anybody get a chance to look at a mission of theirs that starts at ESD?
Well, the problem we have right now is what missions we do already have. If they came over and were published, a lot of them lost pathing, but also you cannot publish anything on the Tribble Foundry at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I also don't use any doors on Earth space dock. I use an NPC.
That doesn't affect what I'm talking about here, because what we want to check is people who already have a mission that starts on ESD. What is it going to do to it when it goes live on holodeck? That's the question. And I think for mine, I'm going to have to go in and reset it to another door, which is easy enough. But I think it's something that everybody's going to have to look at if they got a mission that starts there. So let's see. The other thing that's on Tribble is the new faces and complexions and head types that are being put in the character creator. We were told that was what the dev who was working on it was told, is that those would be filtering down into the Foundry, and lo and behold, they have. And I got to say, I love them. I think they're fantastic.
I have found the images for the cruise liner. I'm about to put them in chat.
Okay. So we do have access to that. And then there was another thing that popped up, and I think by mistake, honestly, is some armor options showed up for female characters only.
Like,
character creator.
There was like 3 or 4 chest options and only one pants option.
Yeah,
and the leg option didn't match any of the chests.
So
it's the old armor visuals from the game launch.
Yeah,
I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that those are something that's going to be expanded on later and not removed.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping. That they'll at least take a little time and get those into the Foundry.
I know they've obviously been messing with those armor options in the regular character creator, the in-game one, because all of those in the kit armors and all of it is going to the character creator now. It's not going to be kit visuals anymore. So I think some of that's filtering down into the Foundry, possibly by mistake, hopefully by design. It's just not quite complete yet.
That's the hope.
We shall see. There are, I think, obviously some links between the character creator we have access to in the Foundry and the one that's in-game. I think they're not completely separate. That's my theory.
I want to just say that I can't agree more on the new faces. They look wonderful. I'm glad that they filtered down as quick, that they're going to be there, basically. If they're on Tribble, unless they're broken, we hope they're going to be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that I noticed just right off the bat, and I only played with it for a couple of minutes, is that, and I don't want to sound insensitive here, but I think it made a better sort of African American looking face than the options that we had previously.
That was the intent. I mean, Joe, what's his name? Cryptic Joe Jing or something?
Yeah.
He talked about that being his intent of trying to create things that allowed for, better representation of various minorities. So,
I think it succeeded, and I think the first thing I'm going to do when that hits live is go back into one of my missions where I have a black Admiral, and I'm going to redo his face so he looks a lot better.
I have a buddy he's mostly Korean, and he loves MMOs, all stripes, and one of his biggest issues is he's like, I can make an Asian looking character. I can never make someone who looks like me. He took a look at the new faces and he was like, given time, I could make something that looks like me now. That's a big compliment.
That's high praise, where he thinks he can make it, look like himself, a real person.
What he thinks is, like, previously he's not seen an MMO where he can create an Asian looking character, but he can't create a specifically Korean looking character for what he sees as the Korean look for him. He hasn't been able to achieve that, and he looked at the stuff that they've updated the faces for, and he was like, there are the right options here. I could do this. So to me, I think that's pretty high praise. So
quick interruption, guys. Just wanted to throw up for the stream. So I apologize for the... This is the image of the Rysian cruise liner.
Oh, cool.
For anyone that's interested. And of course, it's been pulled down now, so we will just have to wait until it comes up properly before we find out just what this thing can actually do.
I have a goofy question. Am I standing up or sitting down?
I hope
he's standing up.
I hope they're going to get time to go back into the game. Not necessarily, possibly old missions even, but even just going in and hitting some of those NPCs that walk around everywhere, and NPCs that you talk to as mission givers and things like that. If they can just go back and adjust some of those, it will really deepen to my mind, it would deepen the immersion of the game if they had the opportunity to go back and do that.
And they may have done some of that already. Automatic. Yeah. So let's see. That's the extent of what I've seen on Tribble. One of the things I want to do is go a little bit more in depth on the doors on ESD, but we will have to wait to do that till next week. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But obviously, doors are there for everybody to use. I think for those who have missions already starting there, you'll have to just go in and select a new one. There may be some that automatically translate.
So
interesting to see.
I may have to go check Mayhem, because I just realized there's no Club 47 anymore, and there might not be by Season 9 launch.
It's going to return. It just won't be ready for Season 9.
Yeah,
right,
definitely,
but the DJ, I know she's on Earth Space Dock, but is she going to be interactable? Will you be able to talk to
I'm
DJ
going with yes.
Medusa?
Yeah, because right now she's sitting on that little walkway thing.
There is a doorway in that entrance area to Club 47 that you can use.
Nice, okay.
Is that set as a door?
Yes, it is. That one door that the little Ferengi guy is standing in front of, that one you can use. I am looking forward to see where the EC grinders move their doorway to, because currently their favorite console is now in the conference room.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was planning to do and just didn't get time yesterday after it went up, is do like a little chart or something, like a one-to-one comparison of this door has moved here, this console has moved here. But I'll try and get that for next week, because we still have a little time before this thing goes live. Yeah. And probably a little downtime before we can actually get into it. As I said last week.
We taking bets on how long that is this time?
Prepare yourself now. I always say just sort of expect 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's usually that, just because of the time it takes to
hope for everything. One, but there's almost always problems.
I don't know. I mean, I did my test and wasn't finding too much going wrong.
It was weird. When I logged into my mission, it told me that there were items that were depreciated versions or newer versions of everything, and the only issues I had was the shelves I were using as stairs started doing disco flashing, so half the stairs would disappear.
That's strange.
And they weren't really disappearing as much as the shadows were appearing where they shouldn't be, and it was just flashing. It was really disco-y.
You should bug report that.
Yeah, I might. But it's one shelf. It's not that big of a deal, I thought. It's the top of a shelf that's only used in one.
Yeah, but I always say if you don't bug report something, it has a 100% chance of not being fixed.
Yeah, and how are those colony buildings that these match up with? Because it's the colony shelf that I'm using.
Something, it has at least a small chance of being fixed. But why don't we move it along to what we've been working on? And Primar, as our guest, have you been working on anything lately?
I ran across a TOS era map that I saw that I really liked, so I'm trying to recreate it as sort of an RP map, and hopefully that'll turn out good. It's working pretty good so far. Problem I've been having is finding the lighting on an exterior map that'll give me what I want. I couldn't find something that had a star field where I could put warp effects that was bright enough. So I ended up doing a exterior daylight map, and I put the warp effect outside of the reading room window, and then I took these 500 by 500 flat number 3 platforms and then the walls that were 500 feet long, and I set them, I think, 250 to 300 units away from the window. I put them way far out, and then I put the warp effect so it's blocking. It's far enough away that it looks like you're staring out into space with the warp effect, so I kind of faked it. Hopefully it'll look pretty good by the time I'm done.
Well, faking things is what we do.
Yeah, I'm starting to get the Foundry author ingenuity here.
That is honestly the thing that I love the most about the Foundry, is seeing people come up with endlessly creative ways to fake things.
And then I logged in yesterday and found I had already hit the limit on building, so I have to start deleting all of those walls that I'd put all the way out there and replace them with detail objects.
Yeah, that's kind of an unfortunate limit, I gotta say.
I don't get why it's 60, but I think it's because it's 60 because they're expecting you to actually be using buildings and not those little building blocks.
Yeah, you don't want to use the building blocks in the buildings.
Except for there's a couple building blocks.
When you start with the... I had been told to start with the building blocks, use as many as you can, and then go in and use your detail objects so you don't hit your limit.
Yeah. But there's those foundation ones that are only in buildings. They're not in detail, so you're forced to use those.
Foundations are in
of
detail.
Course, they're gigantic, so you know.
Yes, the really big ones. They're not in the details.
Both, though. The ones I were using were in both.
Really?
I believe so.
Well, because I'm thinking of the big, like, 500 by 500. Really thick
500 by 500 platforms, I only used 4 of those, but I ended up using close to 30 of the 500-foot long walls that are 9 units thick and 9 units tall, and I set them way far out. So I was close to my limit. Problem I had was I used the small walls for the actual bridge. I used building objects, and that's what killed me.
Yeah, that's one of those things we got to work around. All right, let's see. Hippiejohn, have you been able to get in the Foundry much?
I actually, sorry, it took me a minute to unmute there. I actually haven't been in the editor, but I have in the last 2 weeks. It didn't take me the full 2 weeks. I've spent time tweaking it a little bit here and there. Unfortunately, I have this whole lack of faith in my own ability to create some of the maps that I need, but I have an entire script for a done-in-one mission, just an episode that isn't something that continues, where literally I think that simply by a lot of dialogue and script trickery and simple things like hoping that the player is okay with answering a question like, did you leave any of your bridge officers behind as a guard? when the next map starts out, kind of thing, that will effectively create a mission that has both a success and failure option. That will get you to mission end point no matter what you do, but that you will either have successfully completed the mission, or if you've made some decisions along the way, you will have failed to meet your goal. So I have this entire script, and now I just need to find somebody that I can sit down with and be like, help me figure out these maps. Because I think I've done something really fun, and I just want to put it in the editor, but I don't have the personal faith right now to put some of the maps I want to do together. So,
if I could make a suggestion or two as to who you might contact on that, is either maybe Captain P.F. Dennis, or perhaps Green Dragoon.
Possibly. I was thinking
it's also
about talking
another master of triggers. I'd say.
One of the things that inspired me to write this is I was talking to Kirkbat in the chat room a couple of weeks ago, and people were talking about what is their favorite thing to do in the Foundry. Like, what do they think that they're particularly good at? My maps, anything I do that's a map is super simple. I try to find the easiest thing I can try to repurpose, and I just end up doing things that at least feel to me as these are super simple maps. But I think I really do like, my favorite thing to do is to play around with that dialogue editor and create dialogue trees that you're never going to see 7 of the options, and I don't care that you're never going to see 7 of the options. It's like, that's what I love to do. And so Kirkpat was talking, he was like, man, I should get together with you. I hate writing dialogue and scripts, but I love working on maps. He said that he finds working on maps very therapeutic almost. And for me, working on maps is just stress inducing. So yeah, I'm hoping to find somebody who has a much more friendly time with maps than I do. So
yeah, I'm like Kirk. I love map building. Writing dialogue, kind of less interesting to me, I guess is the best way to put it.
I hate starting dialogue. Once I'm actually into it, then I'm happy. But getting that dialogue started is always hard for me.
I will say I have a similar experience sometimes. Just like that first line of a conversation is so important that it's hard to really nail it down. That's true.
That's one of the things we talked about before is pairing up a writer with a map builder and making a mission. But I don't know that anybody's done it before, really.
Well, I hope I can find somebody who's willing. So,
I'm more of a map
like
builder.
I said, I think I really have come up with a success and a fail condition that both are something that you can reach. So
yeah, I mean, as long as it happens on a single map, I mean, there's really no limit other than objects and details.
The idea that I have will require the next map past the place you're making this decision, someone asking you a question that says, did you do X or did you do Y? And if X, it leads to one outcome, and if Y, it leads to another. So
if I was going to do it that way, I might have a narrator NPC at some point. But as soon as you arrive on the map, the narrator pops up, you talk to him, he disappears. And then you continue your map. And then that way you can do your out-of-character stuff without it technically.
I'm definitely going to do that question as like an out-of-character thing. Just a quick, as soon as the map starts up, is what decision did you just make kind of thing. And then the map will continue. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ways you can disguise it into the dialogue too. As far as as part of like a conversation with an NPC, and kind of just be clever about.
You just you saying that, you just saying the words disguise it in dialogue, I'm not going to have to ask the question out of character. You rock. Thanks for saying that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, going back.
You can always do that sort of thing. I mean, I've done it before where, I say, the way to carry decisions to another map is to essentially ask the question again. What did you do on that previous map? But you don't have to ask it like that.
Right.
Make it an officer who hasn't gotten the report yet or something similar to that.
You beam back to the bridge, your officer says, so how did it go, Captain? you go options, I did such and such, or I did such and such.
Yeah, it's a simple way. One thing that someone did in a mission once was that if you completed an optional objective, an NPC would give you a code that you would need to give to a different NPC later.
Yeah.
Needless to say, this meant like memorizing it or writing it down, but that worked.
Or even if you keep it simple enough so that it's just like a quick phrase, something that isn't too hard to remember.
So in this case, here's tell me what you think of this. Here's what I would do to disguise it. It's as simple as whether or not you left bridge officers in a spot to guard something. And if you did, one thing happens, and if you didn't, another thing happens. And you're starting the next map waking up in sickbay. So when you wake up in sickbay, if I give the captain 2 dialogue options, one that says, the officers that were left at, such and such a point, are they okay? That tells me whether they left someone there.
Out of curiosity, what happens right before you wake up in sickbay?
An explosion.
Okay.
Which means it could potentially be built on the same map. Yeah.
Talk to me later. I think I've got an idea.
Cool. Excellent. Yay!
And it might save you a map too.
Cool.
We like brainstorming like this.
Yes. But that's what I've been working on, is something totally unconnected, because I was talking to Kirkbat, and while I was talking to him, I just got this idea and started not limiting. Often when I'm trying to think of a mission or trying to think of what I'm about to build, I will limit myself to what I think I can achieve in telling my story. Like, I will, kind of like how I've heard Joss Whedon say when he's doing when he was writing the comic book for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he could do things so much more grandiose and amazing because there was no limit on special effects. So in this case, I just took away that limit on what I thought maps could possibly do, because I know that I don't know enough, and I just wrote the script for what I want them to do, instead of, keeping that kind of, this is what I'm capable of limit on it.
I found that making Foundry, especially that technical side of Foundry, is a lot like a magic trick. It's all about controlling where the player is looking and what they're expecting to happen. And then if you kind of plan for that, you can almost get away with doing things in the background, or kind of just like managing their expectations to make it seem like you did something that shouldn't be possible.
I like that. It's like a magic trick. And it's so true that, we can help direct attention. So, shaking buildings and explosions making me not realize that water was rising and an entire map was,
he's distracting you to because if that explosion wasn't there, you would totally notice that your floor just dropped.
Yeah. So.
Well, we'll definitely be eager to see the results of whatever you come up with. All right, Markhawkman, have you been in the Foundry much lately?
I haven't really had time to do much this week. Been really busy this week. And yeah.
It's all right. We all have weeks like that. Greendragoon, how about you? Actually,
I've been spending a little time working on part 2. I I've been working on this specific combination. I'm still on map 8, and probably still going to be there for a while yet, just because it's such a complicated map. But the specific conversation that I was working on is once you've kind of achieved your goal, you find out that the security team that you left back at the entrance at the beginning of the map is under fire, and they expect to be overwhelmed. And you have a choice of order them to hold their ground and protect your escape, or have them retreat. If you order them to hold your ground, they actually stick around through the rest of the map, your time on the map, and they actually end up being around to help you take out the last boss on the map. If you order them to retreat, not only do you not get any help, but you'll also have another group at the exit that you'll have to fight. But if you order them to stay, one of them dies. And then I kind of had to make it so that if you order him to leave, one of them still gets injured, but so he doesn't appear in any of the rest of the mission, but he didn't die. So I mean, it's kind of just that fun of trying to write that scene, and just kind of because it's one of these places where I've really my first opportunity to give the player a choice.
That's kind of what Hippie and I were talking about on Twitter the other day when we were briefly talking about the ideas that he was going through, is that sense of, being a starship captain and possibly having to send officers to their deaths.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of becomes a choice of, do you put their needs or your needs? And there's actually another element to it that I'm not divulging that...
or no, was I talking to you about that?
You were probably talking to me about it.
I think you were talking to him
about
it, but I know, I know that I'm sitting here going, I don't remember that conversation, but it sounds like one I would have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's another element because when this conversation happens, you just realize that something has happened to someone else, and if you're vested at all, your inclination should be to order them to stay and attempt to help this said person. So I'm kind of trying to balance all of these possible feelings that the player might be going through against each other, and try to make the decision more challenging. But I mean, like I said, it's always hard for me to start dialogue, but it's one of those things that by the time I was getting towards the end of it and the reactions of the character you're talking to, it was actually getting a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Well, let's see. Since I finally finished my run-throughs of the Mirror event last Friday. Yes, I am a crazy person. I ran it with 15 tunes. It was my choice, therefore I am not complaining about it. I'm just reaping the awesome rewards. So I've been hard at work on my challenge mission because I still am attempting to do it. The script is finally finished. The nice thing is actually, and I would not advise any other Foundry author to do a mission this way, but it's actually very front-loaded with exposition and loaded at the back end with action. So once I got the exposition out of the way, it was actually very easy to write the rest of it. The last, 3 or 4 maps. It's going to have a slightly comedic part in the middle, I decided. And I have no problem talking about the particulars of this mission because, as I was going to say on the one where I ended up having to be absent, I actually don't want to win. Because I have 2 spotlights already on the Fed and the KDF side. I don't deserve or need to have a third. So I'm just participating for fun. Nobody vote for me.
Yeah, but you need one on the Romulan side.
Okay, don't vote for Drogon.
Yeah,
we now heard
don't,
that from
don't vote for Drogon.
his own words.
I said so. I'm just participating for fun.
But what if
it is going to be a KDF Romulan mission. KDF aligned Romulans. I am going to probably make a copy for Feds and redo this middle section because it's faction specific. Okay, so here's the basic gist of it. is you're contacted by the Romulans from the other side. They tell you that since the very first crossover, which was done by the Tholians to bring the Defiant over, I am positing that they did that by accident while they were trying to do something else. And since that time, the barriers between the universes has been breaking down, and they're reaching a state where they're going to essentially annihilate each other because they can't occupy the two spaces at the same time, or occupy the same space at the same time. So they have
kind of like that TNG episode Parallel.
A little bit like that. I'm actually taking a lot of inspiration from the TV show Fringe, which is all about alternate universes. And so they've got a plan, but they need you. They need you to approach the Klingon-Cardassian alliance because they've cut themselves off and isolated themselves for so many years. They have no idea how to approach them and get them to make peace with the Terrans long enough to have both of them help them in this plan to restore the barrier between universes and stop everybody from dying. So in this middle section, you're going to go and try and find a Klingon regent, and you're actually going to help him and save his butt so that he agrees to join you. And what you're going to save him from is ravenous Epos.
Oh, of course.
And the mission was serious right up until then.
Are you reskinning Mugato?
I might. Because we all know how that goes, and it's hilarious.
I know how that goes.
But it gave me an excuse to insert one of my favorite lines from Aliens. How could they cut the power, man? They're animals.
Nice.
Yeah. I love just throwing in little lines like that. So that's where I'm at.
You want an Epo friend at the end?
No, I didn't want an Epo friend. Blam.
That'll have to be the last question you get asked.
It's a John McClane one-liner.
By the time you're done with this, you get asked at the end, do you want an Epo friend?
And where will Bran Flakes be making his appearance in this mission?
Have mirror Bran Flakes.
Ooh.
Because basically, while you're approaching the Klingon-Cardassian alliance, it's going to bring over. They're going to bring over another Romulan to approach. And this is going to be an NPC character to approach the Terrans to have them join. So we could have mirror Admiral Felczer. That would be hilarious.
He moderates
Just
with an
the
iron
most
fist.
unfriendly person you've ever met.
No. He's mirror,
hates everyone.
He's mirror Admiral Felczer. He's the head of Section 31, and he tells you anything you want to know.
He doesn't even know what the word redacted means.
It sounds like he got a job at another game company with probably someplace closer, and that makes me happy. That
he says he can reveal it at the 21st on the 21st.
Yep.
I know. I mean, he was kind of like the greatest community manager ever. So, in theory, he should have a pretty easy time
I've
finding
not
a job.
I've not played, dozens upon dozens of MMOs, but I've played, more than a handful, and honestly, you're not kidding. Brandon really might be the best at the job of being community manager that I've ever seen. He's really good at it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of it had to do with his passion for Star Trek to begin with. I mean, he loved this game before he was paid to like it.
I've only played 4 games that are kind of like MMOs, and well, this is the only one where I actually met the community manager.
Yeah, is him when
I think that's actually becoming more common, is for community managers to hold real life meet and greets. And obviously, Brand's been to conventions and things and done stuff like that, and had meet and greets all over the world, and that's actually becoming more common. I think it's cool. And Brand did say that he's going to continue going to Star Trek Las Vegas whenever possible. So hopefully he's there this year, because I'm going to be there this year.
I want to go. Financing just hasn't been coming.
It happens. I know. I don't expect I'll go next year for that reason.
You may be our round
maybe your
table
representative
on the ground. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be trying to figure out some ways of either doing some video or something cool from the site of STLV.
See, you should. What I'm thinking is, even if we're not able to do a show where you can get live from there, because I know internet's hard. Hard to get from Vegas from the convention. So even if it's just like whatever devs you can get to make a 1-sentence comment on the Foundry, and then we can play them on the next show or something.
Yeah, I'll take a little tape recorder or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And if need be, I can
MP3s there.
Be your engineer while you're on the site.
There we go. Yeah. And of course, last year we had Alamac Skype in from his hotel room, so I may be able to do that.
He Skyped in on his phone. I'm sure that had to be expensive for him.
Yeah.
I'm certain.
Well, let's see. I've got Skype on my iPad, so if
the
internet is working for me in any way, shape, or form,
you might be able to do it from like a nearby coffee shop or something too.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah,
I don't know if there is. I haven't been.
Go off site.
If you get me a Skype video feed, I can bounce it back to Twitch.
Sit there for 2 hours and talk to yourself in a corner.
I'll come up with the wildest explanation possible. So I please do not disturb me. I'm in the middle of coordinating tactical exercises across the globe.
The globe only?
Let's be realistic. We don't have special forces on Mars yet.
A little bit outside his realm.
Well, you are at a Trek convention.
Now. So actually, let's go quickly into one of the ideas that I had. In fact, because it dovetails with what we were just talking about. I actually had it in the car driving home right before this podcast. Okay, so a little while ago, we had the idea of encouraging Cryptic to create sort of a Foundry commanding officer, and you do one for each faction. And we kind of said, let's make Captain Sulu our Foundry commanding officer. He would give out a tutorial quest when you got up to the level where you can do Foundry missions. He could give out like dailies or something like that to encourage people to go play Foundry missions. And so I had the goofy idea of, making a little campaign commercial where he was extolling his virtues as the Foundry, and asking people to give him their support. And then earlier today, people were talking on Twitter and on the forums about having some sort of in-game thing for Brandflake, since he is departing and everybody loves him. Having like an Admiral Felczer, and in there, and my idea was him to be in charge of communications, and basically his only purpose was to redact things. That was my joke idea from earlier. So I thought, how about this? Let's make it a campaign between Admiral Felczer and Captain Sulu to be Foundry CEO.
I like it. I mean, I could definitely
let's make dueling campaign commercials and forum signatures. Vote for me, just to draw attention to the idea, and to create some cool fan created stuff, and to have fun with it.
Well, what about that Romulan who runs the flotilla?
Yeah, I was thinking about having her, because you don't really visit the flotilla once you hit level 11 or whatever, and you pick your side, and then you're pretty much gone.
Well, my thought is that you make a big deal out of the Federation one, because it's got recognizable Captain Sulu, and we can create a Admiral Felczer for this purpose, and then the Klingon version and the Romulan version could be their running mates. I think the one in the flotilla is great, because you're actually standing right next to her when you get up to the point where you can actually do Foundry missions.
And then I would say either one of the lore singers from KDF side.
I'd say the female lore singer. It seems like she's less used. They have a mission, on the KDF side where you go talk to the lore singer. You go talk to her, and the extent of your communication with her is, I don't really know that much. Here's the tiny bit I know. Go talk to the other guy. So, like, giving her something more to do than be a redirect would be kind of neat.
And that's kind of, it fits with the theme of doing, like, a Captain Sulu or what's her name on the flotilla, because they don't have much else to do.
Right. Well, I mean, Sulu
and we could give them something
these days, really.
Not that many people use the flotilla. I use it because everything's in one spot and I'm not jumping around maps. Like when I'm
I love the flotilla.
It's a nice interior, isn't it?
And
it's very
I'd
nice
use the
interior.
flotilla more if it had doffing inside it. You can't do any doff missions in there. Yeah.
Because up till level 10, you can't do DOF missions.
I really think they don't mean you to visit it much. After
Yeah.
level
I don't
10.
think
but this could be a way to
you're
encourage you to
back
do that.
You hit level 10.
Yeah. Once you pick a faction at 10, you basically have access to New Romulus, and you're not really meant to be back there. It's just meant to be your spot until level 10, when you hypothetically the Romulans are still looking for a planet.
You technically find it.
I think they should have made. I think there's a Foundry mission to be made. Going back in time a little bit to when the flotilla was just off on its own before they found New Romulus.
Well, I like when
Could
you're
be,
your Romulan character, for those first 10 levels, it's a completely special version of Today Would Block. All the planets have different names. The systems are not entirely the same, and you pick your system.
See, I feel like if we went back to that, to just the flotilla, they would definitely be evoking a Battlestar Galactica feel, without doubt.
Like that first episode where they're being attacked every 33 minutes, and everybody's just strung out, and I think that could be a really cool Foundry mission.
And there's a traitor in their midst.
There you go. Because they're Romulans. And they're sneaky.
What? The purple creature?
Why is this not a Foundry mission yet?
Because what's that limit on mobs? 25?
Are we ready to move into topics? Do we have any more that
we already are?
I think we're kind of in topics.
I skipped ahead slightly, but I do have a mission review that I want to get out of the way because it dovetails into the next topic, actually.
Awesome.
All right. So, Duke of Rock, who's a long time Foundry mission author, asked me to...
Generous, great guy, too. I like him.
Great guy. He asked me to review his mission, Medusa's Revenge. It's part of a big series of his that revolves around some different alien races that he created. I got mega respect for people who do that because it's not something that I do a lot. So being part of a big series that I hadn't played the other parts, so I will forgive him for anything that I didn't understand, and I will assume that it has internal consistency because I don't know one way or the other. Because I haven't played the other ones. It starts off, I got to say, with his very cool Argus Array build. This is something that he created a long time ago. He had this little daily mission where you go and protect the Argus Array. Back when we used to have the 3 mission wrapper. It's sort of specifically designed to do that very quickly, but still have an actual legit mission behind it. And it's a very cool build. The only thing is that I didn't think he set, because you have a little space battle there, I didn't think he set it close enough to the build. Because if he had set it closer, we could be, banking and dipping and rising all around the geometry there, and it would have been a really cool fight. So I'd say set that closer. One of the things is that you're very aggressive with the alien species that shows up at the Argus Array. You essentially just pick a fight with them before even asking them why they're there. You just demand to know why they're there. And that didn't seem very Starfleet to me. I mean, it actually fit my Fed Klingon character that I was running, but I know for other Starfleet characters it'd be nice to have some softer options. And actually that was something that was sort of pervading through the whole mission, is that there were not a lot of dialogue options. obviously, some authors are better than others. Especially if you saw something like going from Purity 5 of Realm Times to Purity 6 of mine, you notice that Realm Time is a lot better at that than I am. He had tons and tons of dialogue options. I had much fewer. But it's something that everybody appreciates, providing some more RP options for their characters, things that at least would be closer to what their character would really say. Let's see. One of the things I really liked is that he had a dialogue bit before we beamed down to a planet later where one of my officers argues with me about the safety of me beaming down. Obviously, that happens in Trek a lot because first officers are supposed to look after the health and safety of the captain. This happened to be actually Eliza Flores, who was arguing with me about that. I thought that was great. Obviously, that's not something he can control, but I thought it was cool. Let's see. He had... there was another one where, we always harp on this as ways to avoid map transitions. There was one bit where you go to a really neat-looking throne room, but you only have a little bit of dialogue there before you exit the map, and I thought that could have been somehow built into, or, at least the dialogue transferred to something on the next map. Which is a really neat exterior map, kind of in the Greendragoon style, I like to say, of taking a cryptic map and building many things onto it, but keeping a lot of the original geometry and using it to your advantage.
I don't think I'm allowed to have two styles named after me.
Yes, you are, because I said so. Let's see. So the one thing is that he had, this map was a city, and when you have a city, what you want to have is lots of people walking around it, so it feels like it's populated. And there, in this case, he didn't have a lot of people on it. It was a great looking city, but it felt very empty. Another awesome thing he had was a duck blind. Something that we saw in TNG one time, then we saw it in Insurrection quite a lot, and I know a couple other authors have been working on ones. They've been mentioning it in the chat room. But he's built one. It's very cool. It's very cramped, like you would think one of these things would be. I think probably the only problem is you do have to take a map transition to get there, and there's not too much to do once you're inside it before you transfer back out. But maybe he thought he couldn't actually really build it into the map. One neat thing that he did is that the interior version is built kind of like above a copy of the exterior version. So you actually see out the window to the things that you saw when you were outside. To the same, it's like a palace kind of thing that he built. So you see that out the window. And then you go back out to the exterior map, you walk around it again. I thought that was incredibly cool. Let's see. There was one point where I think the spawn point was lower than it should have been. This is when you spawn outside the palace. Duke, if you're listening to this, after you fight around inside the palace, when you spawn back outside, you're under the map or almost under the geometry and in the water. Let's see. Overall, I thought it was very well done. It did make me want to go back and play the rest of his missions to get a little bit more of the story and learn about some of the recurring characters. So I would always recommend a Duke of Rock mission. They tend to be very, very good. So here's moving into our next topic. One of the things I noticed while I was playing this map is that he did a lot of reskinning of existing NPC groups into different things. Some of them were the fictional alien race that he created, and some of them were actually Undine. And I assume that he reskinned Ilachi mobs as Undine and this other race. I assume he did this to keep the level requirement down, because obviously Undine are, 45 plus? Something like that? Anybody know off the top of your head?
Yeah, sounds right.
I want to say they're 41.
Actually, I think they're 48 because you don't deal with them until you're close to 48, 49 level in the story missions.
they're up there anyway. And Elachi mobs are not. Elachi mobs are 21 plus. So I assume he did that to keep the minimum level down. You know, when you're doing a series, what I would suggest to anybody who's doing a series is that you keep the minimum level the same.
Yeah.
So I assume that's why he's done that. However, it creates some problems because these Undine mobs were spawning the little mech critters that Undine have with them, the one that spouts the gas and things like that, and the little stasis thing. And obviously they weren't fighting like Undine. So I don't know. I mean, so I want to talk about, reskinning NPC mobs. There are some I think that to avoid for that very reason is things. Off the top of my head, like Cardassians, some of the captain mobs have those holograms. They put down a hologram turret, and it spawns different holograms of Cardassians, and those don't change no matter what you skin everything to.
And then there's Hippiejohn, who have a similar trick, except the Hippiejohn holo emitter produces a stream of holographic Hippiejohn one after another instead of giving you 3 or 4 all at once. Riemann captain mobs actually do this thing where they create psionic illusions of themselves, which always, they're glowy purple things that are shaped like Riemann's.
Yeah, and they say shaped like Riemann's even if you reskin the original mob to something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the guy I was trying to use as a contact the other day. I was trying to explain that I wasn't doing a good job.
So let's see if we can think of some mobs that don't have those problems.
So I think just about every mob anymore has something kind of unique to them. The least or the most generic I've found so far are like the Nausicaans. They have a couple of hold powers, but their weapons aren't particularly recognizable, and they don't have any special tricks that identify them. So I've used them for like gangs and whatnot. The Orion captains are supposed to be females in their group, and so they will throw a confuse on you. That looks like they're blowing up.
The seductive
that always
pheromone
looks like
thing.
Yes, yeah. They always do the pheromone.
That could potentially be hilarious.
Actually, I've been using them for Eidolon, the Eidolon ground troops, for the idea that every once in a while one of them will get into your head and confuse you. It seems to work pretty well so far.
Mm-hmm. I think Gorn mobs, of course, will have those ones that pick up a thing and throw it at you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you don't want them to do that, don't reskin Gorn.
It's hilarious when it's a small enemy because
the rocks as wide as they are tall.
Animation works.
The rocks as wide as they are tall.
or
wider. Yeah.
You can reskin enemy mobs as a Nanov. Ooh, I really want to see what the animation would look like if you had a Nanov throwing rocks at you.
Probably wouldn't get much.
I wouldn't think it would animate
break.
at all. Because you have problems when you try and reskin humanoid mobs as non-humanoids and vice versa. Like
Yeah,
I know if you try and reskin what is it, Tholian or something else as Tholians, like friendly Federation mobs as Tholian, they carry around a phaser rifle and their animations are wonky.
Yeah, because their animations don't line up properly.
Have you seen what happens when you do it the other way?
No.
You have enemies that walk around firing radiation blasts from the palms of their hands, if I remember right.
That could be fun.
That could be cool.
No,
yeah,
Klingons
sometimes you can use it,
Yeah, sometimes you can use these quirkiness to your advantage.
One thing I'm looking for is I want a humanoid, just a human that does not have any weapons, but that will fight like a normal person. And that's the problem I have. I have all my prisoners set up as mirrors, but they all pull out a rifle and start shooting at you, which is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Really, about the only thing you can do there is reskin animals. as your guys, and you know, the only problem is they'll headbutt you
And that I don't want
instead
either.
of punching you, which is kind of annoying. I really wish we had a dedicated melee mob.
That's one of those things I really don't get, is because why does the game default to a headbutt animation in that situation anyways?
Because it's not a humanoid.
Yeah, their animation sets don't
It's probably a case of things that one of those things that they didn't expect we would do that, and they didn't build anything to do that. So
they didn't build redundancy.
They should always assume that we'll do that.
well, I mean, because the humanoid model has a punch animation. I mean, what does the humanoid model even use a headbutt animation for? That's the part that bugs me.
It's probably more like probably actually a bite animation.
You're skinning, putting a humanoid over a animal. It's still technically an animal, and that's how the game considers it.
Well, I know that, but it's drawing humanoid animations to do the actions of the animal.
Well,
it's because they don't have the same animation sets.
Yeah. It's fetching really the wrong animation.
Oh, that reminds me. One thing that we learned recently is that nanovs do not have death animations. If you rescan an enemy mob as a nanov, when you kill it, it'll just sit there staring at you until it eventually disappears.
Finally, a creature we can stun.
Until it just despawned.
Yeah,
it went home.
One thing I came across
spawn the nanov NPC, and set it to component complete on the death of that.
And it would actually work, because it wouldn't despawn until after that one was already there. It might work.
Yeah.
One thing I came across the other day, which I didn't realize we had in there, I was looking for that purple Riemann guy as a contact, as a narrator, but I didn't know what he was called. I searched hologram. And we have 3 holographic male Klingons, 3 holographic female Klingons, and then a holographic male Cardassian that do the flashy holographic thing. I'm assuming they went in when the Federation tutorial was created, because those are used. But it's nice that we have them. Those could be a lot.
Are you sure we don't have a holographic Hippiejohn?
I didn't see a Hippiejohn, but he may not have been labeled with holographic in his name. I just searched Holo, H-O-L-O.
Yeah, their labeling is somewhat idiosyncratic.
It's nuts.
Because one thing that occurred to me is that those are enemies that we have specific reasons for having holographic skins for. Hippiejohn is another one that we have a specific reason for having a holographic skin for.
Yeah, we had the Klingons because they're in the Federation tutorial, and I don't even remember where the Cardassian guy was from.
Well, the Cardassian skin is used for the Cardassian holo emitter device.
Yeah, he did have holo emitters on his arm.
No. What I mean is that the Cardassian captain mob that place that holographic turret, the holographic Cardassians you get from that have that shimmer effect attached to them.
Okay, so that's what those were from. That makes sense now.
And since the Hippiejohn use a similar trick, I was wondering if the Hippiejohn might be included that way.
I don't know.
I didn't see him.
You would have to look through, because some of the labeling isn't.
The nice thing was that the 3 male Klingons each looked different, and the 3 females each looked different. So you had 3 different mobs that were different people, but you could duplicate them as many times as you want because they're holograms. And they do the flashing intermittently, which is kind of fun. And the first time you shoot them, they'll do a big flash.
Nice. Sir Boulevard in the chat room says that Hordas actually do have a death animation.
Yeah.
So
I hadn't thought of that one yet.
Looking for Hordas.
Because if I remember right, Epos have a death animation too. You shoot them and then they kind of like fall over or something. It's not a particularly interesting death animation, but unlike nanovs, they don't just sit there and wiggle like they're enjoying themselves.
So we've been talking about ground mobs. Now, space mobs, of course, have also their own quirks. Romulan mobs, of course, will die in a singularity collapse, you might say. Borg mobs, Borg cubes anyway, will, no matter what you skin them in, when they die, they break apart into big sections of a cube.
Even
Things
if
like
they're a
that.
fed, they'll turn into a cube.
Yes,
Yeah.
they will.
Well, that's kind of fun.
Into the big destroyed pieces of one that float around for a little bit. One things that I discovered, or actually rather somebody else discovered when they were playing one of my missions, is that I reskinned Hippiejohn space mobs as TOS feds because I wanted blue phasers, or blue weapons of some kind. And he said they spawned some sort of little thing like a hologram or something that actually looks like Hippiejohn ships, and I think that must have been since they updated those mobs, because it didn't used to do that. And I think it's like the concept
It was
power.
probably when they did the revamp of them, yeah.
Yeah, so I may have to go change that.
A couple of ships will, of course, launch fighters.
Did you mention Photonic Fleet yet?
Does somebody do Photonic Fleet?
Oh no! I mean, yeah. There's the Cardassian Keldon will do Photonic.
Keldon love that.
And that's a pain.
Gotta watch out for that.
One thing I've been seeing lately is people will set up a mission for one person, everyone goes in as 5, but they've put 6 of the spawns. They've only kept the 3 spawns that they're expecting in the middle of the map. The rest of them are stuck out in the corner, and then you can't get to them, so you can't finish the mission. Or my personal favorite, they only skin 3 of the actors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you kind of got to plan.
So you get 3 feds and 4 Cardassians.
Got to skin everybody.
And there is a guide on Starbase UGC that basically breaks down exactly what will show up with each, depending on how many players are in. So you can literally go in and then kind of plan for, this is a fighter, this is a frigate, this is a battleship, this is a cruiser, and kind of with some certainty get those all skinned properly.
Oh, here's something interesting that Sir Boulevard just said. He said if you don't want them to use those special powers, set them to legacy combat.
Right, but doesn't that cut off all powers, even when the ship should?
I have no idea. We'd have to do some testing on that, unless he knows.
It's interesting. I hadn't even thought to try it.
Chat in a minute when we catch up or they catch up to our conversation.
Yeah, we'll see if he's tested this. Obviously, that when you set it to legacy combat, it means you can't set it to things like patrol. So you got to, realize that there might be a trade-off there.
So I missed all that. What were the differences between the legacy? What were those in the past? Because I was not here for that part of the Foundry.
Well, I'm not necessarily certain.
We weren't necessarily sure what the new combat did when it came out.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was something specific that they did that maybe...
There's kind of like no documentation for what these things do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, there is no documentation.
There have been a lot of abilities added to certain enemy mobs, like, how certain Klingon ships will fire bio-neural torpedoes at you. I'm just guessing, but I'm guessing that if you set them to legacy combat, that would turn off the ability to fire bio-neural torpedoes. Because this is something that Cryptic has actually worked into their own missions after they initially added that to the game.
Looks like it works for some, but not the Cardies. They'll still do the photo fleet.
As they always did.
Okay.
It's not a new skill for them.
Yeah. Essentially, it must like reset it to what these mobs were, at launch, basically.
Because what they've said in the past
their
is
legacy behavior.
Once they give something a skill and it goes live and somebody has it, they then can't remove it.
Yeah,
they can change it and add new things, but they still have to keep the old items there.
All of this is set on a factional basis, so which is why it would be really hard to add any sort of customization of powers to the Foundry.
Yeah. So all right, let's see. Hippiejohn had a topic for us tonight. What have you got, Hippie?
I'm gonna call my topic 5 because hey, I'm almost glad that my mic broke at the as the show was starting last week, so that I had a you guys dealt with my topic in a far more almost civil way than I could have, because what it and this topic that I have is a much more open-ended kind of, all right, so here's what we know. We know that some of us are going to be offended by hearing only 5 items or only 5 things are what we might have time for getting into the Foundry. Now, there are 1,000 reasons that could be the answer that Gecko gave when they asked him directly, what can we really expect? Now, I mean, those reasons can come from, he knows a heck of a lot more about what's going on with the scheduling of the team's time than we do. He knows more of what people are willing to do a little, like an extra hour here and there to help out a neglected part of the player base. He knows what things are possible and how quickly they can be done. So, we don't know why he said 5, but we know he said 5. So my topic last week was, we asked for way too much when he said that, and there was a bit of a snark in my topic last week, I guess. And what my topic this week would be is, so regardless of whether we're offended by the idea of only 5 items, or whether we are happy to accept that he seems to be, like in my case, I love that he seems to be being really honest with us, in recent interviews and stuff. So in this case, I guess my topic is, he said 5. If we really only get 5 things, what 5 things most benefit the entire community as a whole, and don't speak to people's specific, I want to have these costumes, or I want to have these sets and maps and etc. What 5 items have a generic enough use that they will apply to all authors and help all authors improve their missions in some way if we only get 5 items? I know I've got a couple of answers of my own, but I'm interested to hear discussion about what other people think are the sort of things that help an entire community, as opposed to being more, this is my personal request so I can do certain kinds of missions.
Well, so, part of the question is, what do you think he meant by 5 items? I mean, do you think he meant assets, detailed assets?
I think he meant
costumes?
5. I think he meant 5 assets, which may or may not have included maps.
I mean,
I kind of thought he meant assets as well. I mean, just
asset. There's detail assets. There's maps. There's costumes. Those are all, and I would add another category of NPCs and or NPC groups.
Where's this list we made? It's around here somewhere.
Yeah, we did the Big Master voted on list.
You should know. You made it.
Yeah, I know.
So what was the top 5 on that when you find it? I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say. It's very, very difficult to whittle that down, and because as we know of creating that list of 25 things, we all have so many different ideas about what we want. And so I guess here's where I go with that topic when I thought about it for myself this week and thought about, wanting to have it talked about is, like I said, what things have people asked for that really help everyone? What simple items that, to my mind, simple textures is a great one that applies to everyone. That thing that Kirkbat keeps asking for like floors and ceilings
and ceilings and stuff. That is that while I might not have a use for it, I think it applies to all authors. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking of.
We're very limited as far as nice looking floors and nice looking ceilings. We just have the building blocks, pretty much.
Here's when we had the list. The number 1 item was transporter pads from all factions, including the Cardassian. An empty exterior.
That is 4 items.
Yeah,
that's not 1 item. That's 4 items.
It's probably more than 4.
Yeah.
We're talking
Well,
about
The
all
third one was the new Federation.
Is there?
Wall.
Wait, hang on. Is there a Cardassian transporter pad anywhere?
Yes, somewhere. I can't
I think
remember.
Oh,
there
he's
might
talking
be.
about the one from Deep Space Nine.
Probably.
Well, what I think what we're thinking when that was suggested is, just the pad itself, the ground portion.
Right. But again, like in my mind, that's minimum 4 items, 3 factions,
Right.
and then they said plus Cardassian.
Yeah.
And on our list that we gave them, that's a 1 item thing on our list, and that's where I feel like, again, transporter pads are great, and I think they can apply to a lot of authors, but they might not be simple enough to apply to everyone. That's what I'm thinking. That it
what
has
about
to be
something like
simple things.
one interior from each faction?
That's 3 items, and that's good.
Preferably a new interior.
Yeah.
Well, now what you're thinking? Are you thinking like the ship interiors, the playable
Yeah,
ones currently
player
that we
ones,
have?
like the large player ship interiors.
Yeah.
Like the new Romulan one.
So like the Romulan one, the Federation one, and the Klingon one. That covers all 3 factions.
I don't know. I don't honestly think we need a Klingon one because there's a couple maps that do great for Klingon.
Yeah.
We have enough for Klingon interiors. I'd give up anything right now in this game just to have the current Romulan interior. I want that
because
engineering.
it's a brilliant map.
I want that engineering.
There's a whole lot of the new Romulan maps that I want to have to be able to tinker with. I mean, I could make you a list of a dozen Romulan interiors that are awesome from the Romulan storyline that you have no hope of even coming close to replicating in the Foundry using the assets we have.
Using the assets we have.
Here, let's have a little fun with this. I'm going to try something here.
That's what I was hoping, is that this would be a little bit of fun, that people could say, what,
fun? We're not
fun? Who
supposed
does
to have
that?
fun here.
That, like, people could say, what, because it was hard for me to say, what are the items I'm thinking of that, I only want because I want them,
Before we go on to what Dragoon was going to say, hold that thought for a second, but let's let Primer finish what the top 5 was.
Yeah.
So what was number 2 again?
Number 2 was an empty exterior ground map built from scratch. Number 3
black
was
space and nothing else.
Awesome one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Yep. The third one was the new Federation walls. We wanted the ESD style gray ones, the Federation interior origin ones, and then some Starbase interior ones. The fourth one was more Federation carpets and floors, and then the fifth one was a bomb.
Yeah, the single spatial charge by itself.
We wanted the regular spatial charges, the Fed ones that we saw, the Romulan Tal Shiar ones that we saw in the mission where we're on, I can't think, Kittimer. Then we wanted the round ones we saw in Sphere of Influence, and those were the top 5 lists that we had.
Mm-hmm. Of that, I think the way that I would word some of those, I would say something like Romulan interior, propped and unpropped, because they may not be able to give us, all of the different Romulan interiors, but they might be able to give us just one, here's a Romulan map with a bunch of those props baked in, and here's a Romulan map with none of those props baked in. That's 2 assets that I think a lot of people
I would keep it simpler than that, because, we're trying to cast a wide net with this. So I'm actually, I don't know if you guys can see this on the stream yet. I'm actually have the list up. So I can edit this on the fly. So number 1 I've got in here is the Romulan player ship interior. It's easy. It's a specific map, and it would hopefully have a wide application for any Romulan.
And hopefully we would have the ability to either turn on or turn off the singularity. That would be nice.
I'm going to tell you it's going to be either or.
And that's the problem. People are going to want it broken.
That Taco ran into when he was putting in Utopia Planitia is that some of these things had to be locked off.
Yeah, it's either or, and if you want a version with or without, it would be 2 separate maps. So I'm saying keep it there. I would say keep it there, and
keep it simple.
Keep it simple. This is the short list. We only get 5.
Oh, it'd also be nice to have the scimitar bridge.
Be nice,
but,
or do we really need it?
No, but here's the thing. Actually, that brings up another thing that I would really love to see, even though it's on the long list of things that would be nice to have but unnecessary. Riemann consoles.
Yeah, still.
I would very much like to have those, but let's see. We're talking sort of universal application. I think one of the ones from the other list has been much requested is that blank interior map, just black space.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I have to agree.
That one I think is really wide. Really wonderfully useful to so many people.
Tons of us use that black space, and they've told us that it's dangerous to do so, and it's proved dangerous to do so for some of us.
Yeah, because if they trim it up, we get errors.
I actually pulled up and I built one on DS9. I built it in that big center section of the station that's not being used. Because there's no way they're going to trim it out.
Yeah.
One thing that was asked a lot in this list was the Starfleet Academy ground map, including the new shuttle bay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are two different maps.
Yep. Those are two different maps.
But the one with the shuttle bay is on the same map as a Starfleet Academy. It's not the same Starfleet Academy as.
But it was a single map.
The social map.
So,
but it is a single map, as far as I know.
The question again: does it have widespread need, or is it only very specific?
Because I know a lot of people that I deal with who want to be able to do missions at Starfleet Academy, and they want to do a lot of things like that. And that map, just the special version that was for the tutorial, had a lot of extra things that we liked. It had the shuttle bay. It had a working office that we could use.
Yeah, Captain Taggart's office.
Everything that flowed.
I guess I echo Dragoon's question in that there are a lot of people who want to do a good mission set in Starfleet Academy and have a better map to do it on. But is that, again, that's what I'm getting at, is even the Romulan player ship interior, I'm kind of like, is that a specific group of people that that want that asset, that if we were to say replace that instead with water volume asset, that kind of thing, does saying Starfleet Academy cut off everyone who wants to be making Klingon missions and Romulan missions and have no use for Starfleet Academy? You know what I mean? I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, and some of these, you're going to run into that.
I would use it if we had it,
Well, the next thing I would say for the list would be the more carpets and floors.
Oh, one asset.
See, I would word that one as whatever primitive textures can be applied to simple floor and ceilings in the time allotted.
Even if it was just they took the 500 by 500 block that we have, and they just put a flat blue carpet texture that we have on our space dock. Just spread it for the whole 500 by 500 block. I'd be happy.
The reason I would say whatever or however many they can do in the time allotted is, if it really is if what we're really asking them to do is as simple as make it blue, make it red, make it the thing that's going to take the time is going to be uploading those textures.
Yeah,
so
but it's still,
however many they're willing to do is what I would say. Just carpet and ceiling textures, whatever they are willing to put in.
So
if that's one, super. If it's 7,000, super. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to have to hold you back to your original rule, Hippie, which is each one of those is a different asset, and we're trying for 5.
It is. So a carpet, like
5 things without qualification.
Yeah.
I think it's a carpet,
carpet texture. They can pick which one.
Mm-hmm.
Over a platform.
As we've been sitting here thinking about this, I've been thinking about the things I've seen in the Legacy of Romulus storyline, and I actually thought of one thing that would actually be very, very good to have, just because, it's so different from the interior maps we have in the game. And one, of course, that would be so incredibly situational, despite being an amazingly pretty map that I would personally love to have in the Foundry? Well, one is the Elachi ship interiors, just because they have such a visually distinct aesthetic to them.
I almost want to say we kind of stay away from visually distinct because we need.
See, I keep coming back to a water volume object because the only thing we can do that simulates water right now is to find a map that has it, and the people never get any deeper than what their knees. Whereas if we had a simple water volume object, even if it was just a simple 10 by 10 cube, we could build the things that we would like to have and actually have water that people could sink down into and things.
I don't know. Would it need to be bigger than 10 by 10?
In that case, Mark or John, I would probably ask for just that. One of the objects we had on the list was an empty map that just had water and sky.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could put anything else we wanted in the map.
Yeah, you put your own
the thing I see is that, like, with the empty black space interior map, we could take a water volume object and put that on the map, and then we have water on that map. And if we really want to use that entire map and not have any water on it, we don't put the volume object in there. And then there's no water.
One thing that I would like to point out here is that I don't think that it's a good idea to have a single water volume object that's gigantic, simply because of the fact that would limit its uses to
flora.
You
probably want a smaller one, I think.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned 10 by 10.
Ideally, of course, you would want several of varying sizes, but we're thinking one object here, so let's make it a nice medium size.
Okay, so we're up to 5, but I've got something I want to throw out to you guys.
Okay.
A NPC group which has one NPC in it. This NPC has no beam in or beam out animation, and this NPC is friendly, and will fight with hand-to-hand only.
Yeah.
Well, part of that sounds like something that would be better off done as a system improvement and not something tied to a specific asset.
Well, let's assume at this moment that we're not going to get a system improvement.
Namely the spawn and despawn animations.
I think that's a safe assumption.
At that point, I'd say I'd want to be able to pick a costume and set it so they would follow me around like we did with Worf and Sphere of Influence. Follow along, fight with me, use them as a contact if I want to. But
follow is an NPC behavior, and it's actually one the Neverwinter Foundry has. So we might get it one day, but I don't think you can tie it to a specific NPC like that.
Doesn't the Neverwinter Foundry also have the ability to set animations for spawning and despawning?
It might.
See, when you mention NPC, it makes me think of something that I think it was Jesse Heinig said back when the whole debate was happening with timid NPCs and how they were being exploited and stuff. When people were saying, but some of the authors were like, we use this behavior, this timid behavior, to create better stories, to create an NPC that has, and I was in total agreement. I'm like, they're crushing an exploit, that's great, but in crushing that exploit, they're taking away one of the storytelling options when they got rid of the timid behavior. And I remember one of the responses in the thread when everyone was talking about that was, I think it was Jesse Heinig said, we could potentially create an NPC group that just, had the timid behavior, et cetera, and that kind of thing is one of those, it's a storytelling, an NPC that has the sort of thing you're talking about or has, aspect of behavior that we can't access other ways, opens up a lot of storytelling possibilities.
So, that's definitely an option. Really, part of the reason I chose an NPC that doesn't have any beam and beam out animations is that we can use it for NPC swapping to swap states, like we do with detail objects. Right now, all we've got is a group of targs that are technically supposed to be hostile, but apparently, because of a bug, aren't. That are also missing their beam-in animations.
I'd like just to be able to disable a beam animation on an NPC. Just have a checkbox.
That's a feature.
Well, that thing I mentioned earlier about an amazingly awesome map from the new Romulan storyline that I really can't visualize us ever getting as a Foundry asset is the one where you're investigating the interior of a Borg cube and find the giant spear shape cut out of it.
Yeah.
I just can't visualize that being something that would be generally useful.
It's a cool map, yeah, but yeah, it's extremely specific.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to explore that one, though, simply because of the fact that you have a Borg interior that has like 12 floors.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they didn't model
Borg
anything they didn't have to.
and whatever. I know. But it'd still be cool to get a closer look and be able to wander around because you have a very limited point of reference when you actually.
You can do a demo record of it and then free cam through that.
Maybe.
I don't know. People in the chat room, any thoughts on this list?
Yep. Any when we post the announcement of the episode in the forums, add to the list of things that you think are generic enough to apply to generic and universal, and
just based on things that people request a lot. Romulan Republic uniforms.
There's a good one.
Creator.
There's a good one. What do I take off?
It's not exactly universal, but it's
including
much requested.
the TOS Romulan outfits.
Yeah, but the Romulan Republic is such is like from the third.
That thought is the what do you take off there?
But Pork ran into that issue with his.
This is the problem we get. Because now we're getting into uniforms, which are each a different thing. The shirt's the top.
Right. Yeah. See, this is why I on our list that we've come up with here, I would even get rid of Romulan ship interior and Starfleet Academy. Because they're faction specific and they.
But even things that are faction specific can be used.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, other factions missions because they're just maps. You could make a Klingon map where you attack Starfleet Academy. Things like that.
And since uniforms are so much harder for them to get into the Foundry, it's less likely to happen.
And in fairness, uniforms are handled by completely different people.
Right.
An environmental artist would be the one to add these objects, whereas a costume artist or character artist would be the one to add.
I think, what, if I remember the interview correctly, what Gecko was saying is that he wanted a short list to pass along to the art department.
Yep, that was exactly. And he wanted a short list.
Which would be maps and objects. So obviously, my costume suggestion would be a completely different department.
Mm-hmm.
Which I tried to draw a little attention to that to people in the character art department. I don't know if it worked.
Yeah, we don't have a very good contact for that.
I can only think of, the three objects in my mind that are as plain that can be used by anybody are the empty map, the empty, or rather just the textured platform for new floors, and a water volume. Those are things that to me seem very generic. I'm thinking also, we're talking about an empty space map. What about an empty ground map that we can just build from?
That is a ground map. Oh, you mean like a plane?
I mean, we have empty space maps, that we can build.
This is an empty interior map.
Yeah.
It
says
so Knight Templar said costumes are art, are they not? And yes, they are, but they are handled by a completely different team. There's a character art team versus a environment art team, which is what Taco works for.
Yeah.
It should be mentioned that even though Taco Fangs is the most communicative of all the devs, he is not actually the head of the art department. So, I mean, requesting things for him, what he'll tell you is, that'd be nice, but it's not on the schedule, and he's not in charge of the schedule.
No, is it Salami Inferno who he answers to?
Possibly.
And from what I heard, they don't even do their own scheduling.
It might be set by higher up.
Oh, yeah, Taco's not high enough to set scheduling.
No.
It's determined by the leads and
the one thing I always have to say about this is how many times have we been asked to give them a list? I think I've been part of give
2 or
me
3.
the last 3 lists, and I haven't seen anything come out of it.
See, and that was my point of last week, was literally, like, we asked for months, various parts of the Foundry community said, be honest with us, just tell us what we can really expect. We said that on this show. I heard other shows mention that. Just be honest with us. When asked directly, what can we expect? What could we get? He said, I need a short list of 5 items. And we took, 2 weeks to deliberate on coming up with a list of how many items, 25, that got passed to him, which to my mind said, that's why our list didn't get taken seriously and didn't get looked at. We said,
I wouldn't say that it didn't get taken
I think
serious.
it was. Let me finish my thought.
Well, we don't know if it got looked at or not, really.
Yeah, we said, well, I wouldn't have looked at it. If I were in Gecko's position, I would not have looked at that list that we gave him, because he said we can do 5 things, 5 items. We could do that. And then the community came back with a list of 25 items, where multiple items on that list were transporters for all the factions, which is 4 different items. This for all the factions, which is 4 different items, et cetera, right? So we handed them a list of not 5 items like they said they could do. We handed them a list where our first item was 5 items. And I would have ignored us too. I would have said they don't get it. I would have said in my mind, I don't know how much clearer I can explain. We could do 5 individual things. He was very clear in that interview, Knight Templar. I know people are always asking, what does that mean? 5 items, 5 individual assets. Well, if the question in my mind is, well, what does that mean? When we start asking, well, what does that mean? We're starting to say, how far can we push this to get more stuff?
So what you're thinking is take it at face value and
take
say
it at face
just
value.
5 things, and that's it. No
Take it at
qualifications,
face
no
value,
just
give
5
him
things.
exactly what he said. If he said 5 items, we give them a list of 5 simple items. That's what he said they could do. That's what we should have given him. We shouldn't have said, well, what does 5 items mean? And how far can we ask for stuff before it becomes more than 1 item? And that's what we did for 2 weeks. And even after spending 2 weeks of doing that, we couldn't come back with a list of 5 items. We had to come back with 25.
Let's do it now.
Yeah,
okay. We've got some suggestions here. Let's ask for some suggestions in our forum thread, and let's revisit this on the next show and see if we can't put together, honestly, 5 items.
Yeah.
So community, that's your question.
We can do this again.
Yeah.
Come back to us. Let us know what items you think need to be on this list of 5, and give reasons. I mean, kind of make your argument of why.
Yeah.
And
these specific items.
Let's really be objective about this and say 5 things that will benefit the most people.
Yeah.
And 5 things by themselves, not with 3 little sub bullet points.
Yeah, and
5 things.
Nothing like all the uniforms or all the transporter pads or
because I mean I will have to say, Hippie, that and I said so at the time, as I was very disappointed by that answer. To be honest, if it was honest, that's great, but I was disappointed by the answer, and I think it's a sad state of affairs. And I said so at the time.
I agree.
And I think a lot of people would agree.
Yeah,
because we have such a ginormous backlog of stuff that isn't in the Foundry. And I there's a line that I keep saying to the devs. I don't know if they've read it or not, but I just keep saying, let us do our best work with your best work. And most of their best work is not available in the Foundry.
That's where I come up.
It's tragic, really.
I get why they did it, but I'm wondering if we really needed to go to Season 8, Season 8.5, Season 9, Season 9.5. Did we really need to go there?
Well, that's a whole other deal. And that
did we
goes
really need to shorten the development time by half and try and squeeze twice as much in here, and then say, well, we don't have time to do it?
Well, I don't think that's that's actually the way it worked with the .5 season releases. I think it was more a matter of not pushing all of the changes live at the same time and breaking them up so to just as a way of
spreading out the content a little bit, not having not going
not
so long
spreading
without
out the
release.
content so much as avoiding having multiple bugs hit the live server at once.
It could be a little bit of that, but they way back at the beginning of the game when they came up with season 1, what they said at that time, and obviously a lot of people who are on the team now weren't on the team then, so I mean it's just what some of them said at the time was something like, we intend this to work like the TV shows where when you're in a season of a TV show you have a little bit at regular intervals, you don't have just one lump sum at the very beginning. And so what they intended was to do little content really, probably have a big season opener and then some little content releases as the season went on. So you were in season 1 all the way up until season 2 started.
Yep.
You weren't. Season 1 just wasn't one thing at the beginning. And this is the first time they've labeled one of their content releases as .5. But they always had intended to do things like that.
Well, I mean, I remember the one where they did the Dominion featured episode series. I mean, because that one, they added new stuff once a week for 4 weeks.
Yeah, and that was, during one of their seasons.
Yeah.
And what you're
It
talking
wasn't
about
outside of a
seasons
season. It
is
was
why we
during
get to
the season.
Yeah, it's why we get to Dev Blog 40 and stuff about a season as they're putting new stuff into it.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it off is to to ask for suggestions from the community. Let's refine our lists of things. We'll call Primar's list of 25. We'll call that round 1. We need to go in round 2 now.
Yeah, mine was called the Foundry short list, was short in quotations.
This is the short. This is the shorter list.
No, this is the actual short list.
This is I hope this is what Al was really asking for.
Yes.
List is what I'm hoping the community can put together. That's what I'm hoping that we can do. This is what was really asked.
I think we've got at least 3 very, very, very universal things on there.
I think we do.
We can probably get some more good suggestions for universal things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we are running out of time here, so everybody, let's
contact info.
I have one more thing to bring up towards the end.
Oh, go ahead. Actually,
one thing I've been seeing a lot lately is a lot of people have been coming up with these RP maps. They create these missions. They don't necessarily put a lot of story into it, if they put story at all, but they putting a lot of effort into building these maps, and some of them are coming out extremely well. We came across a bridge that was a TOS era bridge, and I'd say it was on par, if not better, than the TOS bridge that we're paying $25 for. So I thought it was quite well. I'm happy to see that these maps are coming in. I hope more people do it, and I think if we were to get this UI that we've asked for a million times, I'd like to be able to differentiate these ones, maybe add a category that's just no story or RP or something like that.
That'd be nice.
That's a good one.
We've featured a couple of them here on the roundtable since we went to the live format. I mean, we went to the that high-rise apartment, which was awesome.
Yep, we're kind of in one now.
Yeah, we're kind of in one now, even though it wasn't necessarily created originally for that purpose.
What this was, from what I've heard from Relum, this was one of the leftover maps he had created for his portion of Purity series. It was one map he had at the end that he had never done. And I think this is actually the second published version of it, because last time I wasn't here, there wasn't that presidential suite that you guys were talking about. So I might have to go take a look and see what that is.
You may be improving it. We should say the name of the mission is the Chimera Club. Club Chimera by Relum Time 82.
And it is still in review right now. It's only got like 1 review.
Yes. We should all review it when we're done here.
If we all give it a 5-star, I believe it'll be on the regular map.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, I mean, if you're out there and you're making these things, publicize it a little bit. Put some screenshots on the forum and let people know where to go look at it.
Let
and the
us
number one
know.
thing
Let me know. I love running around maps
Hippie,
like
Hippie
this
loves
and
these
getting
things.
And
we're
the one thing I have seen that a lot of these authors do need to do is they need to put into their description, this is an RP map, because so many of them are being one-starred because these people jump into these maps not realizing there's no story. Is sad, really sad in my opinion, but they just need to put, this is an RP map but has no story.
Yeah.
And authors, if you have an RP map and you would like us to feature it on the show, feel free to send it in. In fact, you can do so at send us an email to Foundry Roundtable at live.com. You can also contact us on Twitter. The podcast's Twitter account is at Foundry Roundtab, TAB at the end. Drogan can be reached at Drogan1701. Hippiejohn can be reached at Hippie_John. And I can be reached at Greendragoon with 2 O's.
All right. Let's see. Do you still have Primar's thing for his fleet lying around?
No, unfortunately, I don't have that loaded up. Sorry.
Darn.
No big deal.
No big deal. That was on the one 2 episodes ago, so there we go.
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, I keep a long list of graphics, so I try to clear things up after each show.
It does tend to eat up some of your space, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if you do want to stop by 12th Fleet or take a look at us, we just recently, Zorbane has written a article for us. He went through, I think, let me just pull it up just to be sure so I get the name right. He called it, let's see, Zorbane's Foundry Author Prospect Report. He went through and he found a new mission that had just been posted, and he had gone and he reviewed the mission and then sent the author a bunch of feedback. The funny part was then the author took the mission down when we posted the article. He has since put it back up, so it's a lot of fun to view.
Sounds great.
If you do want to stop by and read the blog, there's a link for it. We're always looking for people to join in. If you don't already have a fleet, if you want to join, that's perfectly fine. We're not going to try and push you in. We do have a good group of Foundry authors. We've had 3 or 4 that we only have 3, I believe, that have been spotlighted, 2 that were KDF, and then 1 that is Fed. We have a full division that likes to review missions, and that's a lot of fun. I just recently jumped over from my previous division into the Foundry reviewing division, so that's a lot of fun for me. I'm looking forward to that spot in the fleet, and we're having a lot of fun so far.
All right. Well, we are going to say good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night.
Gracie.
Hail Hydra.